You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello there, beautiful soul. It is Alex here, popping in for a podcast episode where we're going to talk about overwhelm and anxiety when it comes to changing. This came up a lot in our habit challenge because this relates to what the brain is wired to do in an overall sense. So we're going to talk a lot about actually how to approach this when it comes to shifting and transforming intentionally and what that really looks like, and why overwhelm and anxiety is something that really tends to derail people because of the misinterpretation that they make. Like, the meaning that they give it is actually not really what's happening, but the meaning that they have from it causes them oftentimes to sort of say, this isn't working, I need to go find something else. This protocol isn't working, this provider isn't working, this program isn't working, this book isn't working, fill in the blank. It doesn't really matter what it is. But whenever we're trying to shift, as this comes up for Megan and I, as we learn this and navigate over time, now we look at these things happening during the process of transformation as a sign that things are going really well. And that's why we're really going to reframe that today in this podcast episode, because more than likely you'll hear along this process where you have done this in the past and have it played out. Oftentimes when we have this discussion with people, they know exactly what we're talking about here. So we're going to dig into all of that today. However, I did want to announce, we have a super exciting announcement, and that is that our Health Transformation Accelerator program is open again. So it's open until Thursday. I'm going to do a couple podcast episodes this week, and at the end, I will tell you about a really important bonus that if you're listening on the day that this is coming out, you will be eligible to have this bonus, and then as we go we'll share more of those. So it is open. Health Transformation Accelerator program is our approach to changing and transforming into the person you most want to be, with our 7-step process that we have used both for healing. That's what we first did. That's how I overcame chronic pain for 17 years. That's, premature ovarian failure, endometriosis for me, all of the physical stuff. And then for Megan, it was things like anxiety. I will say I had that too, and I was majorly a worrier. And then things like her recovering from mold, the postpartum period, and what that was like. Everything that we have talked about here, we had this process that we used, and then the zeal with that and how it works every time. And then this is why it's a program that you can repeat cycle after cycle. We're going to do it 2 times a year. Is that once you have your health in place, first of all, with that, you'll already see a ton of shifts across the rest of your life, because we've talked about on here before, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And obviously in the process of becoming a person that's healthy, like actually transforming from I have health issues to someone who's like, I am truly healthy, that transformation has huge ramifications for the rest of our lives. And hopefully that's not surprising, right? That is why we want to be healthy. And that being said, it actually begins to be the springboard for everything else we want to do, right? Because we're like, oh, hey, I feel good. Now what? right? It doesn't magically solve like the rest of the components that we're looking for to feel joyful, happy, connected, loved, all of the things in our life, right? So then our ladies stick around and do multiple rounds so that they are really intentionally following the process to up level. And this is a 12-week program, right? So twice a year, some of them stick around to do it twice a year, and that level of work intentionally on our lives, and as we approach change with a framework instead of the kind of stuff we'll talk about today, that stuff is very, very, very powerful. This is the process of looking and saying, I want to steer the ship. I no longer want to get what I'm given and, have thoughts about that. I think that there's more in me, right? A way to impact the world, build businesses, write books, raise children, be an amazing partner, start programs. I mean, whatever you want to do, like there's so much that the world needs right now. And for many of us, we haven't actually been shown this, right? So I'm going to start with an analogy actually on that topic as we start talking about overwhelm. But for Health Transformation Accelerator, if there's going to be a link down below in the show notes, and you can go to zestyginger.com/transform. There's only 4 days to sign up for the course. The doors close Thursday night. So definitely get on over to that page. There's tons of transformational videos and stories of real women like you who have gone through it. And, you don't have to take my word for it or our word for it. Check those out, because this is the kind of thing we're really, really, really hoping to empower women. And that's the whole point. This is not a program where we're like, we tell you what to eat and how to move and then you do it. We will show you what it looks like to be your own authority and give you a system so that you figure that out in the way that it applies for you. And I will say, if you're dealing with information overwhelm, right, you're coming to this because you're overwhelmed, or you're just like life feels too hectic, everything feels out of control, Health Transformation Accelerator is for you. And if you are in the place where you're like, I feel pretty darn good and I know that there's more in me, that is definitely geared for you as well, right? Because if you're also not trying to dig yourself out a hole, you can get out of the gate. That being said, many of us, even when we're feeling good, we really, truly, as a society, don't seem to respect all the parts that make us a human being, right? And we keep sort of artificially being like, well, here's your health, here's what you do for supplements and testing, but here's mindset, and that's separate, and your emotions over here are separate. And most of us need that, and spirituality is a whole nother thing, right? And it's just something you do. So bringing it all together, there's a new level of feeling goodness that we experience when all of us is one place, and especially when that place feels good to us, right? Because we're all there and it's all intentional. We're not showing up in our lives as different people in different scenarios. So that all being said, if this is the kind of work that you are doing, but you just feel like you're like, I know where I want to go, I need help getting there, check this page out. It's going to tell you exactly how we work, how the 12 weeks unfold. There's 2 calls a week. Anyone can do it from any country, anything. There's going to be optional testing, and there's also an option if you don't want to do the testing, and we're going to explain how that works. All of that is going to be on the page zestyginger.com/transform, so make sure you check that out. All right, so overwhelm, and I said I had a story for you. So, or the analogy. The analogy is that many of us get taught about certain aspects of our body. So, for example, you were probably a kid or young adolescent when you learned this concept of when you exercise, when you work out, and you do something that your body hasn't done, sometimes your muscles are sore. And sometimes they're really sore. Like it feels like there's something wrong with you. I don't know about you, but I've done leg days where I'm like, I drop that pen and I will just go get another one from the counter because I can't bend over. So, obviously if you didn't know that, you'd be like, oh my God, whatever I just did is like the worst, right? If you're just an alien and pooped into a physical body, they told you to work out and that's how you felt after, you'd be like, this is awful. I'm literally hurting myself. But most of us have been taught, well, the muscle pain is because of XYZ. This is what your muscles are doing. They're actually growing and recovering. That's how they get better. So it's okay. You can scale back on the intensity of your exercise, and that's how you deal with it, right? Or you can wait longer in between, or you can modify what you're doing. But generally, it's not like, oh no, your muscles are sore, let's stop. And when it comes to overwhelm and anxiety and things like that, kind of in that family, which is like frustration, bitterness, anger, that kind of stuff, that is a very, very similar process when it comes to a brain-based approach to change. And really for all of them, but it becomes more obvious when you're doing it intentionally, because you're not just kind of letting life snowball you into whatever you're doing. You're actually following, a framework that moves you along. It goes faster than most people figure it out, just kind of hobbling along, right? And because you are expediting your transformation, which really most people want, right? We want results. That's the whole reason. And so as we go, it begins to stand out in a different way. However, if we don't reframe it and we're not actually knowing what's happening, this is where people kind of cut and run, are like, well, I just won't exercise, my muscles are sore. But that's really not necessarily the only option for that, right? And just like with that analogy, that doesn't mean you don't modify things. Of course you react to that. Of course there's strategies for dealing with overwhelm. And number one starts with, what does it actually tell us, right? So more than likely you have big dreams, you have lots to do, you know exactly what you want out of life, but you are feeling these things not quite happening. And then when you do go to shift things, sometimes this comes up. So the flip side of that is really standing in your empowerment and seeing things from a different and higher perspective. One of our mentors, Jim Fortin, he has this really great analogy on perception of, if you go to the Empire State Building and you're on the street in front of it, you're like, but if someone called me on the phone, I'd be like, yeah, I'm at the Empire State Building, right? Or you're in the lobby. That's one view. If I'm at the very top of it and someone calls me and asks me where are you, I'm going to be like, I'm at the Empire State Building, right? But my view from the lobby and my view from the top are going to give me two different perspectives. And this is really what we're talking about in terms of reframes and understanding what things are actually meaning when they're happening. It's a different vantage point. And when we approach ourselves in that way, imagine how much more you can see from the top of the Empire State Building than the lobby. This is what we're doing in our own life. And the way that we do this is through brain-based change. That's how we work on it. And it applies to any way that you change. However, when this comes up, it's part of the process. So how does the brain actually work? Like, what is it trying to accomplish? The brain's goal that it inherently has is for survival and protection of us, right? That is one set goal that it has constantly. Other than that, though, what it has is a focus on efficiency and making things happen with as little energy expenditure and effort as possible, right? It's costly. Therefore, anything that we do, the brain begins to be more and more efficient at doing it. That's it. When I had chronic pain, it's very easy for me to have chronic pain because my central nervous system was primed for that. It was wired for that. That is the signal I was sending out. And the longer it went, the more I experienced that, right? Same for even emotional homes, anxiety, anger, that kind of stuff. And you name it, it's efficient, right? The reason that happens is that it is trying to help us navigate the world. So that is why we don't have to relearn how to pour cereal into a bowl. This is why you don't have to relearn how to brush your teeth. You don't have to figure out how to get to work or drop your kids off at the school. Like, you begin to learn the pathways there, and it becomes so efficient that sometimes you get to work and you don't even remember being there, right? Or being in the car doing it. It's just it happened, and you were thinking about what you were going to do when you get to work. So it actually frees up a lot of brain power to have things be efficiently wired in. And it doesn't really matter to the brain what it's wiring in. Now, we'll care if it's not keeping you alive, right? That being said, part of that is it doesn't have that opinion, and it will wire it in. That's why people that have lived under really crazy conditions, their brain has adapted. They still navigate those things very efficiently. Now, it could be incredibly traumatic, but the brain is like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's get better at doing it. So every time it is just going to keep doing that. And that is why really there's no such thing as static when it comes to the central nervous system. It's always a dynamic process. That's why I'll actually be talking about time coming up, and kind of like this concept of I don't have time, or I have failed so much in the past that I'm scared to invest that much time for something that I don't know will be the outcome that I want, right? But when it comes to the concept of time, it's like you can't put a pause on your brain learning and rewiring. It's going to keep wiring in whatever you're already doing. So even if we're like, oh, I just don't have time for it, there's nothing that will stop. It's just that it will keep perpetuating what we already have going on. And when no matter, even if we've had something for 45 years, once you start asking it to change and rewire, it's dynamic, it will. There's no time component to that. Now, if it's been around for a long time, is there more hardwiring? Sure. And, the whole thing is that it can dynamically change, and it is always doing so. So the question about the timing becomes, am I willing to keep doing the same thing I've been doing and having my brain get efficient for it? Or has the time really come where it's like, no matter what, I'm going to get this addressed. I do not want to keep perpetuating this reality and this thing in my environment and in my world and in my whole, internal universe. Therefore, the time is now. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow. However, this is crucial to understand about the efficiency of it, because the things that we habitually do that we consciously say we don't want, like snacking, food choices, not working out, sleeping in, mindlessly scrolling social media, yelling at the kids, being irritable with your partner, procrastination, all of that stuff, just whatever it is that you experience, all of that reflects kind of the decision making and the wiring of the brain at that time, dependent on brain chemistry and your kind of either fight or flight or rest and digest state, and all of the other things that make you you. So that is why, really good or bad, for the most part, the central nervous system will do it, and it will become efficient. So that is the kind of working out. You can lift weights and changes will occur. That's why they've done so many studies. I mean, the research is so out there. Meditation, hypnosis, even just wiring, like I've been sharing the MIT study 2016 where they're looking at cues and rewards and habits, right? All of those things are basically different ways of looking at the brain, scanning the brain of people, and confirming that our brains change in response to the things that we do. Now, where does the working out piece come in where you get sore, right? Because the brain is geared towards efficiency, and that is what its focus is, when it has to unwire the patterns that it defaults to for that efficiency and wire in new ones, it will communicate with you through experiences, right? Whether it's emotions or thoughts. A lot of times they're one and the same for people, because you have a thought and then you have a feeling, and that comes up, right? that is the brain letting you know that things are changing. So that is why I say when Megan and I feel this overwhelm and anxiety, we've heard the phrase used, disintegration anxiety, and I think it's a great one, right? You are kind of disintegrating who you were consciously, because you're like, well, that was great. I appreciate who I have been, and this is where I'm going and who I'm becoming. When you have that and you are actually taking apart connections at the brain level and wiring in new things, it will let you know that the efficiency of that has gone down, right? You would actually want to know. It's the same thing as I used this example on our Instagram Live today of, yeah, if you're sitting in your house and people start coming in, taking out furniture and putting in new ones, you would kind of just be like, hey, what's going on? You're looking around, you're trying to figure it out. It's not that different for the brain. This is basically doing an assessment and going, where is my stability and efficiency wired in, and why is that changing? I better let her know. And that's where emotions that feel uncomfortable really begin to come up. They end up being an alert mechanism for your brain working with you, and it's only doing that because what you are doing is working. So I hope that is kind of getting through it as the main message. When you are changing and that comes up, that is a normal response. Now, along with the sore muscle thing. Now, if you get so sore, you're like, can't walk down the stairs, and you are, miserable, are there things that you can do? Absolutely. This is not where you're like, oh, great, let me hit it as hard as I can and be as uncomfortable as possible. That's very similar to hitting detox really hard and then releasing a bunch of the things you have stored, and then you're like, why do I have brain fog? That kind of thing. There is a time and place. Absolutely. Moving through discomfort is one thing, but it's not saying that just because it represents your brain changing, that you don't want to consider other ways of shifting to make it more comfortable so that you can keep going. All of this ends with one place. How do I get myself to keep changing and transforming consciously and still know how to navigate the bumps in the road? Right? And so that's why in Health Transformation Accelerator, all of that is keyed in, and there's lots of tools, essentially, because you can change your approach. You can give yourself more support. There's physical support, assessing your brain chemistry, approaching building blocks and protective resources for the central nervous system. There are parasympathetic activation tools. There are mindset rewiring activities. We have guided visualizations and breathing exercises. You name it, we have it. And the whole goal of it is to get everything cohesively working in place. And part of that means you need tools to navigate moving through the discomfort of growth. You just need to understand what you reach for when that happens and how to tweak the different things that you're doing if it is truly time to say, okay, right now I want to conscientiously back off a little bit, let myself catch up, and then I keep moving forward. All of it becomes a process of navigation and making it the most, kind of controlled by you, not in a way of you're controlling the outcome, but more how can you have your hands on the driver's wheel? Or I think I just merged two sayings into one. This might be an English as a second language thing, but that didn't sound right in my brain. In any case, but this is the direction that we have, right? So you see the bump coming, or you're in the bump. Now what? So that's where it does come down to giving yourself what you need ultimately. But more than anything else that we see and what we lived ourselves is that most of the time we have seen women cut and run at that point. Because they're like, if this was so good, or if I was on the right track, I'd be feeling better. But now I'm actually worse. And it's actually kind of confusing usually, right? Unless you know this is happening. Because you're going along, you're like, cool, I did the thing, I'm doing it, I'm actually showing up, like this is great. And then bam, you get hit with anxiety. And you're like, but why? I was actually like doing the right thing and I was on such a roll, and what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? I always mess it up, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I know how to fire that off because it's something that I have done in the past. So, I totally relate and there's no judgment here. But every time we do that, it just takes so damn long. And that's why when we talk about time, Megan and I didn't lose time by navigating discomfort of change. We didn't lose time by, not knowing the exact steps that were going to unfold before we got there. We lost time by continually sort of doing this runaround where we didn't even totally understand what was happening, and it caused all sorts of confusion. And that is really such a big impact. We can deal with time loss, but loss of belief in ourselves and belief that things can change and that we're really meant for more, that is damaging, right? And that's why we talk about not gaslighting yourself, really feeling like, how do I take the steps in my own life to lead myself to where I want to be and be my own authority of that? So this is essentially the key. When you are breaking things down, we are also receptive to new information coming in. Imagine this, right? So you are rearranging your kitchen, and you got a new shelf, so you're like, cool, I'll shift all this around, this will look better over here. So you put your pantry items over on the other side of the kitchen, you move your pots and pans over to the other side, right? Then you're like, oh gosh, I'm hungry, I'll go grab a snack. You go over to where the pantry used to be, right? That's the efficiency part. That's going to get you there. Now, interrupting that, the fact that your brain had to stop and go, oh wait, the snacks aren't here. Now it's pulling in, it goes on alert in a way. Not necessarily like stressed out, but it just pays more attention. And isn't that what, if you're like, I always wake up and I go to the shower and I brush my teeth. But if you wake up and you go to the shower and there's a guy standing there, you're going to be on alert. I mean, he could be like saying, hey, I'm bringing you $2 million and here's some roses. And you're still going to be like, that's cool, but whoa, this is different. Probably having a guy in your bathroom, not a great analogy, but you know what I mean, right? Something that is so out of the norm, or like a purple unicorn standing there. I think we can all be excited about it. I know I would be. I know Megan's daughter Paige would be. And my brain would be very much paying attention at that time, right? Why is it there? What's going on? That's what it does. So that's why the pattern interrupt of change, and when we do that internally of, I'm not going to that thought. I know that I think that I'm fat, I'm ugly, I fail all the time, my personality is just that I'm irritable, whatever. And when we start talking to ourselves differently and communicating with ourselves and reinforcing that in our environment, in our actions, and what we do, what we take, all of that stuff, it doesn't matter if it's good for the brain, right? It's still going to start to pay more attention because there's a shift happening. What's really cool about that is that then we get to use that to our disposal so that we can move even faster and more efficiently towards our goals, right? Because now the brain is in a state where it's going, all right, I'm listening, what's happening? Now we get to use the success strategies that we are using to shift, to move ourselves along in a way that feels even more easily and effortless over the time. As we do that, the brain goes, oh, I see. So that wasn't that bad. We intentionally did that. We felt supported, right? She did stuff for my brain chemistry. We had the building blocks. She helped me get into the heal and learn state, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. My thoughts were kind to myself, right? I'm processing those. I'm respectful of my emotions, and I help myself move through them. All of that stuff becomes a learning process, the same way that when you went to school, at first your brain is like, what are all these? I sit here, I walk like this, I fill out these bubbles. I don't know if I may be hitting an age where that's not relevant, but the bubble sheets. But anyways, it doesn't matter. So with all of that, it kind of freaked out for a while, and that's why you see first graders, and they're just like all over the place. By 5th grade, by 11th grade, your brain's kind of like, I know this process. I'm going to learn stuff, and then I'm going to have to answer questions. There's these tests, like here's how I navigate them. It just gets better at doing it, and I can definitely say that from being in like higher education for 14 years. I mean, it really just gets test taking and all of that you get better at, and the only reason you get better at that is that the brain, that's what it does. It is learning. So every time we give ourselves an opportunity, big or small, to say, nuh-uh, like, I see you, thank you, you are letting me know that this is working, cool, I really appreciate that, now I don't have to worry. And I hear you, you're uncomfortable, I will support you, and we're going to move forward. And once you're there, the brain is never the same after that. You have actually rewired it. And the more that you do that, the more it learns like, hey, we are in the driver's seat now. We are changing, and she's got me. This is what we're doing. The process speeds up. That's what I'm getting at, because it's efficient. Also, because of that, then the overwhelm and the anxiety, you have context for that, just like context for everything else. You know that one cashier at the grocery store you go to, a little bit grumpy, you kind of just know to watch out for that. So it's not that Megan and I don't experience disintegration anxiety or overwhelm when this happens. We're more just like, hey, buddy, like, hey, what's up? And some days, that's like, you don't go to that checkout line because you're just like, how do I navigate through this? How do I give? And sometimes it means that we take a day off, or take a day off at least in that sense that we're working on, like just, chill for a while. Sometimes it's a week, just like kind of let it ride out. And it's always with the intention of coming back to it with a different level now, understanding, hey, that's really working, right? What you do about it is actually a much, much smaller problem, because once you have a toolkit to choose from, you just go pick one and you do it. That's why this podcast episode is not like what then tools you use, although I've mentioned tons on here already, but really it's more the meaning that you give it and what that represents about your brain and who you are. All right, so with the system that we rely on is really this whole body, whole person, whole being approach. So with the system at play, approaching yourself for all the ways that make you you, really by far the most effective way, that cohesiveness between you and you, very, very, very powerful. All right, so that is it about overwhelm and anxiety for today. Thank you so much for joining me. This was super fun. Don't forget that, actually, not don't forget, because I haven't told you. So I promised that I would tell you about the bonus that we have going on. So for when you join Health Transformation Accelerator program today and until 12 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, the bonus is that you will get entered into the raffle to win a Quantum Leap VIP package with Megan. So it is a multi-hour, it's a 3-hour, they're broken up over 2 sessions. It's a process for rewiring the brain through subconscious reprogramming. Now that is already present. That is a big portion of the program. because you will lead that. It's all led by you. So it's all decided by what you are reprogramming. This is not, if you're not familiar with this kind of work, it can sound a little out there like, oh, who's going to wire my brain? You are, is long story short. But there's many, many, many techniques to make that as fast as possible, as opposed to what we all generally do, which is like bump around into things until we kind of figure it out. But it just takes so long in comparison that at this point, this is really where we're going. So the Quantum Leap session is it's a massive value. And we're going to do a raffle. One lucky person is going to be winning that. The last person that won it was blown away. We're going to share that testimonial on social media. But this process is incredibly powerful. Our conscious mind, about 5%. Subconscious mind is 95%, because that's where all the efficiency is. That's all the stuff you don't even think about. So every time that you learn something, it got stored there. And that's why people don't even realize, like for me, I didn't realize how much I had the women shouldn't be powerful from my mom. I would never in a million years have told you that I had that belief until I started doing these processes. I didn't realize that I was meeting certain needs and it met some of my beliefs to have chronic pain. I would have told you were crazy and I wanted it gone and all that. And I was like, I've been trying so hard. And there was a lot of things going on that were not in congruency with that. This kind of stuff is the way to run as fast as possible and as comfortably as possible towards the direction of who you are becoming and therefore the life that you are creating. And it all interfaces at the brain, because how else would you perceive it, right? This isn't like think positive. This isn't, oh, just address beliefs and things magically go away. It's going to take all of you to come along, but do we want to take the long way, or do we just want to cut straight through to the chase? Because I think most of us know after we accomplish our goal now, we're going to have another one. That's how this whole thing works. So the farther along we go and the more efficient we really get, it allows us to have so much more fun being like, what do I want to create now? What am I experiencing now? How else do I want to be? It just creates this super fun flow of life that, quite honestly, the vast majority of us have not ever been taught how to do. And so much that we have beliefs often that are completely the opposite. Life's a struggle. Good things don't come easily. You have to work for anything. You work hard for anything that's worth having. I'm not saying that there's not scenarios and that's true at certain times, but to have that as the overlying belief, I actually had life is struggle from my father. That was, you come here and it's like it's one of those like safari games, right, where you're just like trying to make it through. Oh, actually, I just started watching Squid Game, so it's like that, right? It's like life is a struggle, and you just kind of try to make it through to the other side. You can imagine what that did to me meeting my goals and how easy I allowed things to be if that's what my brain looked for every single time and kept perpetuating. I said I wanted it to be easy, but was my brain on board with that plan, right? There's lots and lots of layers to this, but that bonus is so valuable, right? It's a huge piece of it, and we'll be bringing that more and more into the program. With this, anyone even not in the raffle, the subconscious reprogramming is huge within that, because that's how you wire in change, and some of it is going to be conscious and some of it's going to be subconscious. All of those things are covered throughout the weeks, and there's systems for it, because people don't need to be told what to do, is our belief. They need systems and frameworks that they can personalize and apply. That's the whole authority bit for you. All right, so that's it for today. I will come back tomorrow and talk about time. Otherwise, come check out the page for Health Transformation Accelerator. That's zestyginger.com/transform, just all one word. And then, of course, reach out to us, email us if you have any questions. It's support@zestyginger.com. All right, I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.